Welcome you guys. Today we're going to have a little non-traditional warm-up. I have a block and a strap with me just off to the side. Always grab props, always have them available just in case. Even if you don't typically use props, it's good to have it there just in case something pops up and you feel a little tighter than normal, or to give yourself a little permission to rest and recover. So we're starting legs out in front. Hands are going to go so fingertips are right in line with the back of my hips. And I want you to draw your elbows in so that they're pointing straight behind you. Chest is pressing slightly forward so that the spine feels lifted. From there, you're driving the heels down and we're coming into a reverse plank. So back of the body needs to be engaged. So pressing heels down, feeling that engagement through the back of the legs. And then arms are also on as well. And I want you to then try to lift a little bit higher and press as far down as you can, maybe trying to get your tippy toes towards the mat, feeling that opening through the front of the hips and then through the chest as well. And then you're lowering all the way down onto the mat. And then I want you to go into a hollow body position. So for some people that means hands behind, legs out, or knees bent. A little bit more advanced would be arms reaching forward or all the way down. Legs extending, glutes are tight again. This time the focus is a little bit more through the tummy. We're going to hold this for 10 more seconds. And then come up into Navasana pose, boat pose. Lower halfway down, we're doing 8 of these. Lift it up nice and slow. Exhale, lower. Inhale, lift. Exhale, lower. Inhale, lift. That's 3. 2 more. Good. Cross the ankles, little shake out. I like to rock a little bit side to side, maybe fold forward, stretch out the glutes. That's our warm up. We're going to do it 2 more times all the way through. So it's just reverse plank, hollow hold into a couple of Ardha Navasana into Navasana. Legs stretch out, hands behind, fingertips right in line with back of the hips. Press the heels, lift and hold. And now that you know how deep you can go into the pose, try to just hold and steady yourself there. Lowering down through the hips, and then right into that hollow body position. 8 breaths. Lift up, Navasana, lower, Ardha Navasana. Lift, Navasana, lower, Ardha. That's 2, we have 6 more. And again, modifying with hands behind if you need that. 10 seconds or so, just sort of stretch out. Whatever's tight, if it feels good to fold forward, do that. If you want to do a little arm stretch, we have one more. Getting into position. This time, I want you to take your gaze up and maybe even back. So drive through the heels, try to get toes down as far as you can, and then look up to start. And then maybe try to drop the head all the way back. That should feel pretty good. Arms are still on, glutes are on. 3 full breaths. Slowly lowering. Hollow body for 8 breaths. And then up to Navasana, lower Ardha Navasana. Exhale on the way down, inhale on the way up. Last one. Beautiful. Give it a little shake out. Again, crossing the shins, folding forward. I want you to make your way into down dog, sort of finishing off warm up today. Spread the fingers, curl the toes, lifting the hips, feeling that upper body stretch, bend the knees, and just sort of pedal the feet out. And then we're shifting forward into plank. Lower halfway down chaturanga. And then inhale, low cobra to start. We're going to do 3 rounds of this. Pull it back, downward facing dog. Come forward to plank on your inhale. Exhale, lower chaturanga. Inhale, low cobra, maybe up dog. Exhale, down dog. Come forward to plank, inhale. Exhale, chaturanga. Inhale, lifting the chest. Feel that big chest opener to downward facing dog. You can come down to the knees, big toes touch, maybe sit back onto the heels, take child's pose. We're starting exercise 1, standing. And I know that most people who are doing this are doing it at home, so I wanted to give you some stuff that you can work with at home. So I have a table right here. My hands are coming down onto the table, and I'm going into a flat back position. Head drops down. I want my feet all the way together, bend the knees just slightly. And I want you to feel that stretch into the upper body. So if we're tight in the shoulders, maybe we feel a little bit bigger stretch through the shoulders. If we're a little bit tighter through the back, bend your knees even more and really try to press your sit bones to the wall behind you. So watch my hand one more time. So if we're tight through the back, you're going to have a little bit of a round there. I want you to support through those front ribs. Make sure upper back is tight and straight as well. And then slowly, deeper bend into the knees. Try to lengthen the hips towards the wall behind you. And take a couple of breaths there. Straighten the legs, maybe shake it out a little bit. Go back into that same position, this time stretching the right leg behind you and then lifting it up. So we're actually going into Warrior 3, but we get a little support of the hands on the table. And you want to make sure, so my right hip is slightly up because my hips are tight. I'm a runner, I'm a triathlete. So if I bend my standing leg a little bit, I can then rotate that hip down and work on the strength through that inner thigh. That rotation helps to build strength where I'm weak. Take one more breath. Try to lift that right leg, stretch it out, and then replace it next to the left. Left foot stretches back, and then lift it into that T shape. My arms are right by my ears, my leg is lifting up, and again, I'm open through that hip a little bit, so I want to make sure I'm dropping it down, nice and flat. And I've become good at feeling that position, so I know what flat is, even if I start a little open, making those slight adjustments as I'm breathing into the pose. But you can always put your hand there, or a block. One more breath, and then return the foot, shake it out. Going back onto my mat, one of my biggest pet peeves about yoga is chair pose. It's because people either don't go deep enough or they go too deep. And it's really about finding the edge. So big toes are together. If we feel really tight in the hips, I want you to step a little bit wider apart. So I'm going to turn and face you guys so you can see. So a little bit wider stance for people with tight hips or all the way together. And then bend the knees. Knees are touching. Hands are at your hips. And the reason why we start with hands at the hips is because you can feel that openness of the hips. And this is pretty easy. Arms are up overhead. We don't feel any pain. Now, I want to pull my belly in and try to sink a little bit deeper and then feel the lift of the chest. And I can still feel front of my hips, right? And then I want you to try to go deep. And for those of you that have a little wider stance, it's going to be easier for you to get down, okay? But if you have excellent hip mobility back here, feet together, you should be able to get all the way down as well. Little ball. And we don't ever want to just sit here, okay? Now we're just sitting in our joints. There's not a lot of muscular activity happening besides in our hip flexors. And we don't want that. We want the feet turned on, okay? And if you can sit down here, that's great because then you can lift up and hold in that deep, deep, deep position, keeping the chest up, okay? But we want to try to work on that edge. So trying to push the hips back first. What we just worked on at that table, pushing the hips back, bending the knees, and then trying to keep that belly in nice and tight and sit down almost so you get stuck into a position, reaching the arms up. I should never see my knees pushing forward with my toes. We want to pull those back, keep the arms up. Try to hold that for 5 breaths here. To stand on your next inhale, palms touch at the top, and then exhale, hands to the heart. If you want to add a little bit of work into that, then just stand on one foot, slightly hover the other foot, and try to sit back into a single leg chair. Come all the way down onto your mat. And we've been talking a lot about that hip mobility, that hip flexibility. We started squeezing our glutes, activating the glutes, and now we're stretching it all out. Okay? So we're going into a forward fold. My legs are straight, knees are pressing down, feeling that lift of my heels. And then I want to try to sit as tall as I can. And this works great if you can get right up against a wall. And you should have a little bit of space to go low back because of that natural arch for the spine. Trying to keep that belly and stretch the arms out, and then reaching forward from there. And depending on your flexibility, you might not go very far. You can always grab. I'm going to show two variations. One with the strap, hook it, and you can use a little bit of arm strength, wrap it around your hands, and pull into that forward fold. Second variation, and this is for people with a little bit tighter hips, but really everybody can do the variation. You're sitting up on the hip, so it's allowing you to have a little bit of mobility through that forward fold. So, lean forward. Now you have a little bit more extension. Make sure thighs are still engaged, so back of the knees are pressing down. And then reaching forward. Just breathing in and out through the nose. Next inhale brings you all the way back up. Block can stay with you, and I'll show this two ways. A little bit more passive. So we're starting in bridge pose, pressing the feet down. Feet are right in line with my hip width, and then lifting the hips up. And from there, you can either do one of two things. You can take triceps, press them down, okay, right in line with the elbows, and little robot arms, trying to draw your shoulder blades together and really open up the chest. If you have that flexibility and this seems a little easier to you, or you don't need that muscular strength, then you can take the hands underneath you, interlace the fingers, and you want to try to squeeze fingers, but also the entire hand together. So we don't want the hand open and limp. We want it engaged and tight. And this is a two-part pose. So once we've finished 8 breaths here, you release the interlace, take your block, and set it right underneath. Let your hips rest. So tailbone is resting, and you want to try to draw your hips. So front of the hips back, feel that length of the tailbone. And then we're lifting both legs up. And you can stay here anywhere from 1 minute to 7 minutes. 7 minutes is going to give you a full, complete cycle through of the blood. It actually detoxes the blood because you're reversing how the blood is flowing. Or upside down. Okay, but sometimes we have to build up to that 7 minutes. So start with 1, and then bend the knees and set it down. The second variation of this is without a block, and you press those triceps in, take those legs up, and then try to reach the toes up and overhead. And I'm pressing through my upper arms. Maybe my toes touch, maybe they don't. But then I'm taking my hands to the low back, start there, bend your knees a little bit, and try to walk the hands up a little bit more. See how much spinal flexibility you have. And then it's either one or both legs up for shoulder stand. Pointing the toes, pressing, and getting that full extension through the spine. And again, 1 or 7 minutes. And anywhere in between works just as great. And then when you're done, both feet slowly come up and overhead, bending the knees, and then slowly articulating through the spine. And we finish hugging knees to the chest, last pose today. We're going to cross our right knee over the left, stretch the arms out, and then slowly letting our knees drop to the left so that we're stretching the right side first. And if that's a little too intense for you today, okay, sometimes it's a lot, especially if we're just getting into yoga, then we stretch the left leg out and just take the right knee across the body. And especially when we're softening into the last couple moments of our yoga practice, it's important that we sort of self-direct it. And if you're comfortable with longer holds, then stay there a little bit longer. If you're not comfortable with the longer holds, then you can switch when you're ready and go to the other side. So right leg will go out, left knee into the chest, twist it across the body. Trying to slow the breath down so it's long and drawn out. And again, make sure if you did that full wrap of the legs, that then you're doing it on the left side as well. And then we're slowly bringing both knees back into the chest. Hug it in. And then I want you to grab your shins, rock back and forth, all the way up and down. And then if you can, maybe use your hands or get some momentum, try to stand all the way up. And you guys are done. Have a great day. I hope you guys really benefit from that. You can feel that openness through the back of the hips. I will see you next week. Thank you guys.